welcome to another exciting episode of Beyond the Bot, where we bring you the latest in AI and robotics and how it can benefit your business. I'm Tony, and I'm here today, again, not in the Blue Sky Lab, but out at Automate 2025, where we're catching up with some of the most exciting folks in the industry to see what they have to offer. I'm joined now by Jacob from iGUS. Jacob, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, this is fun. So, Jacob, before we dive into some of the nitty gritty, can you tell me a little bit of the background of what iGUS is? I hear you guys are a plastics company, but I see a whole lot of robots around me.
Yeah, hey, it's how we're advancing ourselves and advancing this industry. So yes, people do know iGUS as a plastics component manufacturer. We literally started all because of our owner would go around to these businesses in Germany, and he kept asking companies, give me your toughest challenges, give me your toughest challenges, I will find the solution. A company eventually did, and it was an automotive customer, and he needed to do something with this mushroom-shaped bearing is what he ended up designing, and then that bearing was the first ever thing that iGUS invented. And from there, we now have 18 different business units that all have their own subcategories of categories, and we have, just on our bearing side, like we have 64 famous flavors or types of plastic that we manufacture in Germany. That 64 is nowhere close to the amount that we actually have for different temperatures, tensile strengths, pressures, all that stuff. We also got into the flexible cable industry and cable management. That's where we're known for the black E-chain, those things that move like this, like on a 7th axis, or triflex, the black cabling that's on robots. That's us.
Yeah.
And then now, as you're seeing, because we know where this industry is heading, we got into automation.
And we know you guys well because at Blue Sky Robotics, we use your 7th axis linear rail on a daily basis in a lot of our solutions. And, we're grateful that you guys have been a great partner there. So can you tell me a little bit about RBTX and, kind of what that service offering is?
Yeah, so RBTX is basically our automation marketplace. It came because we have this unit within iGUS, LCA, so low cost automation, where we started designing the Rebel, we designed a gantry and a Delta robot, all using iGUS components to get people started in automation. Because if people can't get started in automation, they can't grow in automation. So that's LCA, low cost automation. The way that you got this purple and the RBTX brand is that we developed a marketplace because we started figuring out there were solutions that customers still needed that our robots couldn't always fill. They weren't the best use for. That's just flat out fact. So how do we fix that? We start distributing other people's robots, other people's products, so we can still deliver a solution to the customer. So we have 500 different solutions that are all under 18K, so 18,000. That's all on our website just for people to browse through, check them out. You can watch videos on a solution that's at an actual customer. You can see the products they use, the price it was, all very transparent way of doing business.
You guys power a lot of different solutions in a lot of different types of industries. Yeah. You really run the gambit of automation. Can you tell me a little bit about what are some of the barriers to adoption that you're seeing in the marketplace?
I mean, a lot of our customers are really under that 200,000 benchmark project number, because we're hitting those people because a lot of integrators won't even touch a project that's under 200K. They have their overhead, they have things they need to take care of. So we're trying to focus on those small to medium-sized businesses. And so when you're working with businesses like that, a lot of the time is a knowledge thing. They really may not know about any of this stuff that they're seeing. They just know they need it, or somebody told them that they need it, like they need automation. So you're working against this knowledge gap. You're working against people that may have not used the right things the past 10 to 15 years, and you're now trying to tell them, hey, that's really not how that should have been, and that's not how we're going to do it. You're working against that a little bit. And then also just a product thing. You're making sure that you're not just supplying the next latest and greatest widget just because that company says it's the next latest and greatest widget.
Right.
A lot of that really ties into making sure you get not just a solution, but the solution to the customer. And I think those are a lot of barriers that hold us back because we're trying to make sure we overcome that for our customer, but also it's something that we're gonna have to make sure we walk through with the customer so they don't end up getting screwed in the end.
So in a lot of ways, we talk about this idea that the tool is not necessarily the skill. So you're talking about a knowledge gap. It strikes me that there's kind of two angles to that. There's knowledge of what's possible and then knowledge of how to execute, right? And so, for folks that are maybe interested in automation but not robotics experts, how do you advise them to kind of find an integration partner, or we call them like an automation ally to kind of help bridge that gap?
Let's really focus on the companies that are developing resources for you that aren't centralized around their products. I mean, if you're going all in with one company, then obviously devote all of your time, your resources to learning every little bit about that technology from that one manufacturer. So
Yeah.
if you're finding those companies that are actually giving you industry resources and industry knowledge, focus on them because they care about the growth of the industry overall, whether or not you use their product. And so I would lean heavier into them and those type of whatever you want to call them, distributors, partners, the term you use as well. Focus on those people because they actually care about the growth of the industry.
Now, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in the broader industry? Automation generally, and even kind of specific industries inside of that.
A big one, Cobalt World
Mhm.
was shaken up recently because they changed the term. I mean, it's always been like this, but on paper, a robot was considered safe or collaborative because of certain features that it had on it. And it's now a robot is only considered safe. You can't consider a robot safe. You have to consider that if the cell is safe.
Mm.
That's a big thing because a lot of companies were banking on, oh, like we are the cobot manufacturer or this or that, or look at this safe robot. It's really always been about making sure that the cell is safe for the customer. But that's going to shape up or shake up the cobot industry a little bit. There's been a lot of obviously reshoring or onshoring activities going on.
Well, let's dive into that. How has that impacted, IGUS's business, and
Oh, geez.
how are you seeing the impact of that play out?
I mean, we just unveiled 6 months ago 100 minimum that we have running right now, 100 injection molding machines in Rhode Island. So just so we can make our parts faster and here in the States for our customers.
And for context, that's up from what? How much of an increase is
From
that?
zero. It's from having no manufacturing here in the United States when it comes to our products to now being able to manufacture tons of our bearings and our e-chain, our cable, or our cable management, making that here in the States. We're also diving into the dry spin technology. It's another one of our business units, and that's also going to be done in the States soon as well. And that's just maybe phase like 3 of what we're planning to keep growing and growing in Rhode Island to bring more manufacturing to our customer base, just so we can supply things cheaper and faster.
Wow.
And that's just what we're doing. That's not even how we're better supplying our customers that are also moving their manufacturing processes here. They're needing automation to get those jobs done. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, certainly an interesting topic to keep an eye on. But Jacob, we both know this industry is changing very rapidly. There's huge advancements in the world of AI and robotics that are enabling things that even a year or 2 years ago seemed impossible. And there's more folks than ever interested in exploring this world, and our listeners on Beyond the Bot know that they can always turn to Beyond the Bot for a little bit of insight into how to get started. How are you guys helping folks get educated about what's possible and get started?
I mean, we literally just at this show this year, we unveiled our Axis community, which is a collaborative automation community. We started that because my thing is I want to provide more to the industry and to our customers than just a product. I want to provide something that can actually help them grow in their career, help them grow their business. That's where Axis came in. That's how Axis started. We've been developing it for the past 6 months. We just released it with tons of companies like Kawasaki, Item, Flexline Automation. They all helped us launch it. It was a great week. And the thing that we're trying to focus on is we want a hub that you go to for solutions when you're working on projects for your customers. Before you hit Google, before you start filtering through AI fluff, come to Axis. Oh, did you check Axis yet? Make sure you check Axis on that before you move on. We want to be that, as well as we have an automation community or academy there called the RBTX Academy. That is not just focused on IGUS products. The RBTX community, RBTX Academy, because it's a platform, RBTX is a marketplace. RBTX Academy is about utilizing our partners' curriculum, showing it there, but then also really honing in on what it means to have a business in this industry. Nobody's making videos on how do I become an application engineer?
Right.
What's an end-of-arm tool?
Yeah.
We know, but a lot of people don't. What's an end-of-arm tool? What are the types of kinematics? How do the kinematics on robots work? There's a big difference between the kinematics of a Delta robot and a gantry robot. But if you don't know that, you don't know that.
Yeah.
And so RBTX Academy is all kinds of those classes. We have 16 videos live right now. We also have just a community activity focused area where we're doing live streams. We had incentive programs where you can win a training trip to Rhode Island. There's the networking. We have a 24-hour chat where you can ask any question and get an answer. I keep telling people it's like we took the best of Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube, and put it into one.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. How do folks get signed up? How do you get engaged in that platform?
Now that it's the public launch, you can type in Axis, so like a robot axis or machine axis, AXIS-community.com.
Yeah,
that takes you right there, and then you can already see the homepage. So we leave it open for you. It's all free, but we leave it open, and then you can make your account there. And then once you make your account, everything gets opened up to you, and
it's all
begins.
free.
Yeah.
I assumed this was a $100,000 a month service.
No,
there's quite a lot of value there.
We're working into RBTX Academy into growing into a bigger and bigger thing. And we believe it's in 3 phases. 1, everything at this tier is free. Everything we always do with this tier is free. Tier 2, you have some paid courses that you can buy if you want, just because of the resources we put into it. 3 is in-person trainings, which you would obviously have to pay for because you're going into a facility with 30 to 50 robots.
Right.
That's something you probably have to pay for. But other than that, no, Axis is always going to be that type of free tier with add-on options if you want. But here, everybody's getting the same information.
Yeah. Well, I got 2 last questions for you. One, what is, we've got a lot of robots around us. If you had to spotlight one thing in this kind of display here that you're most excited about, what would it be?
I mean, I'm really liking, so we have this cobot bench right here, and we're showing off Farino, our robot, and then a Dobot or a Dubot. I'm really liking the Dobot, the fact that it has this capacitive sensing where usually cobots have to hit you to stop. This one, you can put your hand up to it. At this distance, the robot's here and it'll stop.
Wow.
I think that's pretty sick. I just like having the cobot bench in general. That's probably mine.
And my last question for you, what's your message for folks out there that, are maybe watching, they're thinking about robotics, they're interested in getting, involved in, automation. What's your message to them?
It's never been easier. It's never been easier to find the information you need, to find the solutions that you're looking for that relate to your business, but it takes you getting after it. Focus on, like I said, those companies that want to help the industry grow, because if that company wants to help the industry grow, they want to help your business grow. They don't care whether you do it with their products or without their products. Focus on that. It's never been easier than right now to get started, and it's only going to get harder, because the longer you wait, the more people that get ahead, and the more people that get ahead, the less information you're going to have.
Okay, I got one last question for you. One of the things that we like to do is kind of debunk common automation myths.
Okay.
Are there any automation myths that you hear on a regular basis that you'd like to debunk for us right now? And I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay. So I mean, it's really not an automation one specific because it's also manufacturing. But the fact that people still love to say, I hate hearing about the skills gap. And I've talked about this on many platforms, many podcasts. I've gotten some heck for it. But the reason I say this, I hate talking about the skills gap because we're still talking about it as in these students and these kids don't care about our industry or don't know about it. I've been a first robotics judge for this last 7 years of my life. I travel to universities and high schools all around this country. These kids want it. These kids have what it takes to get after it, and they are getting after it. And a lot of businesses in our industry just aren't paying attention to what they have in their backyards. Really start looking at what's going on in your community, in your region, community-wise. If you're trying to grow your pipeline and want to invest in these kids, they're ready. And if they don't come to us because we're not there for them, they're going to go to tech. They're going to go start some other business. They're going to go other places. So that's, I'm already all fired up about it already, but I mean, kids do care about this industry. And I'll give it to you though. There's a lot of programs out there that aren't giving them the resources, that aren't giving them the knowledge. I'm not saying that's not there. I'm just saying, why are we not paying attention to the kids that are ready, that do want this, that are in it every day and having fun? Focus on them, nurture them, get them in your facilities. And it is worth your time. It's not just another chore. And just because they're kids doesn't mean they don't matter.
Well, Jacob, we really appreciate you taking time for this.
Shut me down, baby. I'll keep going.
Yeah, but we're really grateful for all the work that you do with IGUS and your incredible team, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again in the very near future.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. I'm here with Alan from Schneider. Alan, thank you so much for joining me. Can you tell our audience just a little bit about who you are and what your role is at Schneider?
Sure, thank you. I'm Alan, and I manage Schneider Electric's digital factory offerings for the United States, which includes motion robotics, process automation technology, digital twins, all of our advanced technology for industrial facilities.
And you know, we know that Schneider is this massive company that does a lot of things really, really well. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of how Schneider got involved in the robotic and automation space in the first place?
Well, sure. Schneider Electric invented the first PLC in 1968 with Bob Morley, and that carried us through a whole legacy of technology, and now we're into Gen AI, co-pilots, and software-defined automation. So it started in 68 and it just moved all the way up.
So before we get into the exciting things you guys are doing with generative AI, you know, I want to take a step back and look at kind of the automation industry overall. What are some of the trends that excite you the most that you're seeing across the board right now?
Well, what I like to see is the flexible manufacturing. Today we're at an event where there's lots of cobots and robotics and articulated robots, and that's one of the major trends. But there are other trends. There's trends on AI, there's trends on digital twins, that have been in the automotive and aircraft industries, but now they're in the robotics industries. Okay, they simulate engineering, reduce engineering time 50%, commissioning time 30%, and they're great for, we have one here with virtual reality showing how it's working in the industry.
Oh, well, we got to make sure we see that one
absolutely,
as well.
Absolutely.
You know, so there's been so much advancement, so much growth in this space. It's, oftentimes hard for folks to keep up. What are some of the biggest kind of roadblocks to adoption that you're seeing, across the board for customers that, maybe could benefit from robotics and automation, but why are they not already using it?
Well, what I've experienced is that there are many customers that are not leveraging enough the system integrators, which have the experience on what works and what doesn't work. So you can imagine you have a company that says, hey, I'd like to automate somehow, right? But there are a dozen different types of robotic systems, okay? So they try and they buy one robot and they find out that's not really what I want. So instead of bringing a consultant and an expert in that knows which one to use for which type of application, they try and get one and they'll find out you have a cobot sitting in a corner not being used. So leverage the system integrators who have that experience. They know the business cases. They know how to make that financial return on investment, and they have that engineering experience.
So then I got to ask you, what makes a good system integration partner? What should folks look for when they go to kind of evaluate these integrators?
Best integrators are the ones that, if you're, let's say, an end user, so you have a manufacturing facility, you need to have one that is experienced in the type of facility and production that you're doing. So if you're in food and beverage, or if you're in medical, or if you're in chemical, or if you're in water, make sure you get someone who is experienced in that area. The good thing is most integrators come from those end user customers, and that's how they created their business. Right. So you have to go to the right one, right? And they usually form the business. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're large, but they have that experience. Okay, so get someone that knows your industry.
Okay, well, so now that we have all the good best practices, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see folks make in kind of pursuing automation?
Typically, they have not thought through enough how it will be used, how their employees need to be trained. What are some of the hurdles, because they used to use, let's say, ladder logic for programming of PLC, and now people are using structured text. So the industry has evolved its programming languages over the years, and they have not thought through all these things. Training, support, the experience in making the business cases, which technology needs to be applied. And some of the companies, if they're very large, they may have that experience, but the small and medium ones need to leverage that kind of experience from these integrators who have that to help them do that digital transformation, that robotics transformation.
I think that's so interesting because on its face, that sounds like a technical problem, but it really, as you're describing, it feels more like a people problem, a training problem, and a knowledge gap.
Yeah, it's a business management leadership issue where you have to think about all of your functional areas in your company, what has to be transformed just to deliver that new product or solution. And technology is changing so fast. As I say, we're going to talk about Gen AI soon. It's coming like a snowstorm here, and it's going through multiple steps. It's going to evolve over the years. So what I'm finding is that even if you go to an integrator, you need to make sure, do they have software engineers? Do they have people that have been trained in AI? Do they have mechatronics people who have taken that engineering domain in university? Are they bringing those people on board? So part of the issue as well is we have typical control engineers who have been there for many years, but it's transforming. You need to have other disciplines. So from younger people, when you're going to school, it's not just mechanical engineering and control engineering anymore. It's mechatronics. You need to understand G-code. You need to understand things that you wouldn't think about, 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
So there's lots of opportunity for computer science people. People know AI. People know digital twins and love that software and programming. So don't be afraid of it. Embrace it all.
Well, we've danced around it enough. I know you
Okay.
guys have some exciting things on the generative AI
Yes.
front. Can you give me a little bit of backstory as to what's happening there?
Okay, sure. So everybody has learned about AI. You've got OpenAI, you've got ChatGPTs, you've got Microsoft Copilots and all that, and Google and everything else, right? So that's all great. It's public domain. You can paste code in there and you can generate something. It's available for everyone, okay? So Schneider has taken that to the next step, all right? So we have our software platforms and software suites like our open software-defined automation platform. We have libraries for all of our technology, meaning hardware pieces that they're in there. And so the difference is that if you're a company, let's say you're an OEM, you want to design that offline. You don't want your code sitting on the public internet, okay?
Right.
So we now take that and put it offline and allow you to design, test, create, and validate and understand your code without it being on the open space. Plus, all of our hardware, okay? All the libraries we have is now embedded into the AI platform. So when you're saying, I want a pump storage application for, let's say, a pack drive or a specific PLC, it knows exactly those PLCs, exactly the features and functions that are available in those PLCs.
Wow.
So when creating the code, it's real code, not stuff that you've learned on the open internet can have errors in it.
Right.
Okay? Plus, we can test it. So lots of engineers love to design code. Okay? So that's awesome. You can still do that. You can paste it into Copilot, and then you can see it can check, it can test and simulate it, and it can generate error reports, and then it can help you correct it, and then you go back and test it again. And then before you ever deploy it, we have things like a digital twin that we'll see. And that allows you to do simulation. It allows you to engineer the product, simulate it before you ever apply any hardware. So it's got all this nice software new technology to use.
So many exciting things going on there. I want to make sure that, everything from a little bit of, it sounds like retrieval augmented generation, kind of AI code editing, and then straight vibe coding is what it sounds like to a certain extent. Can you just walk me through? I want to make sure I understand correctly. How does that work? If I sit down to actually use that program, I'm pulling up a Copilot interface, and then I'm entering in, basically make the robot pick up all the blue bottles, or what does the user story look like?
Sure. So basically, most people, engineers, will have 2, 3 monitors that use it. So you have a Copilot on one. You have your software that is actually got the that's programming on the other side. You generate your code on one side. You copy and paste it into the software, and then it can simulate it. And then you have your digital twin over here, and your digital twin can simulate it and test it before you ever buy your hardware.
Wow.
So it's like an all environment.
So I know you guys have a lot of other exciting things happening on the software front as well. I've seen on signs everywhere this EcoStructure Automation Expert. Can you tell me what that is and what the backstory is there?
Okay, so the backstory to EcoStructure Automation Expert, it's an open software-defined automation platform. And we took input from our customers who are wanting multi-vendor, meaning they don't just want to use Schneider Electric hardware. They may want to use one of our peers' hardware, okay? And today, that's not available, but now it is, okay? So we now have a software platform that can use third-party products. We can integrate them, okay? And so that's one of the main values for it. And it's a process control. It does discrete and hybrid applications. Not only can it simulate the whole process control, but actually configure all the products. Our Copilot is embedded inside Automation Expert, so it's a complete journey for the customer.
That's incredible. Alan, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me, and look forward to catching up with you again soon and following all the awesome things that Schneider has to offer.
Okay, that's great, Tony. Thank you
so
very much.
I appreciate it.
So this is our EcoStruxure Automation Expert Platform, and this is the co-pilot for Gen AI that's embedded inside. Okay, so what we can do here is we can ask it to write code for, let's say, an application like a point-to-point application with a specific library, and it will generate the code. Okay, what it can also do is if the engineer has written their own code, you can also paste it in, and then you can verify and test and simulate and look for errors as well. So it has references. It also explains how the code works. So it comes through here. After the code is pasted in, it'll give you diagrams on how the code is, the logic in the code is working. It explains different code blocks in the code. So my mouse is gone here. 1 second. There we go. And then for all of the libraries and things you've used, we have references that you can refer to make sure you're accessing the right things. Now, if I go back to the top, we can actually test this code. And this is the same. I've already pasted this in. So code is pasted in, does a test generation. So it can either look for errors if you've written your own code, or it can actually go through and test the process that you've created with the code. All right? So it goes through and validate that process, and that's what you're seeing down here in the test case. And that is just the beginning part of it. If you want to see our digital twin, you can go to the next step.
I'm presenting a digital twin concept of the Schneider Electric. We call it a EcoStruxure Machine Expert Twin, applicable for the logistics center, warehouse, baggage handling systems, and so on. As you can see, that this is the model that can be run on the for the training purposes, for this service purposes. It's safe and without any interaction with the humans, and it's quite safe to work on it. And without this QR code scanning, it's very safe to work in the environment around you, and you're not blind. And I can show you the architecture. If this is a real machine, this is a digital twin model of it, and this is the augmented reality goggles and what you can see. This is add-ons, and we can digital twin is running behind the scene, and this is like acts like a additional display and with the augmented reality with Android based, but we are open to all parties and different platforms. Also, I want to present for you how it works behind the scene high level architecture. Why EA stands for EcoStruxure Automation Expert. That is control part, and also digital twin are two different softwares that can communicate through the Office UI together. And then also we can use the digital twin as a service purposes. When imagine in a logistics center, there is a Christmas time, there is a Black Friday, and you wanna see how your machine is reacting and energy consumption and so on. So you can use the digital twin for this purpose as well. Please stop by and look at the Schneider website, EcoStruxure Machine Expert Twin software. Thank you very much.
I'm excited to be joined by Melanie, the Chief Product Officer of Agility, who makes these awesome humanoids that you can see behind me. And we're excited to learn a lot more about what you guys have going on.
Yeah, of course. So at Agility Robotics, we make robots that move material for manufacturers and logistics operators. And so one of the things that you might see is Digit, our main product, the robot that you see behind us, moving totes or other things into machinery and out of machinery. So we can palletize, depalletize, put stuff onto conveyor, take stuff off of conveyor, put stuff onto AMRs like you see behind us, etc. making sure that we're able to slot in wherever people need us as flexible automation and solve kind of the challenges that people have today in connecting their different islands of automation.
So, before we dive into kind of the specifics of the demo that we have going on
Yeah.
behind us, just a couple of general questions about what you guys are seeing in the industry, because you do have so many deployments. You kind of have this unique vantage point. What are some of the trends that excite you the most that you're seeing in automation overall?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm excited about is all of these different types of automation are becoming more connected together, and they're working better synergistically together. I think that if you had asked people 10 or 15 years ago how the automation industry was going to play out, they would imagine like a single big black box where someone was going to come in and all of the problems were going to be solved by one vendor. But that's not the case. We're seeing lots of different vendors solving the problems and making the overall warehouse efficient while allowing customers to pick and choose what technology they're ready for at what time.
Wow, that's interesting. And we're seeing obviously here at Automate, we see all the latest and greatest in technological advancements, and so we know that there's been this huge uptick in innovation and what's possible with automation. But at the same time, obviously, a quote that I like is, "The future's here; it's just not evenly distributed." And so we're not always seeing that on the actual application and adoption side. What do you think are some of the kind of roadblocks keeping folks from adopting some of the latest and greatest in technology?
Yeah, I would say that some of the roadblocks for adopting this technology is just its overall reliability. So if you look at it, one of the big challenges is you can always make really cool demos that work in well-contained or specified, uh, I guess, situations. That's how demos are, or in a lab. You don't have all the mess of the real world, and so they look really good. But then when you get to the dirty work of the real world, you have edge cases and all these other problems, and so it takes a long time to get the long tail of the problem figured out. So right now, if you look at a lot of new technology as it's entering into the warehouse, they're at like 95, 98%, but a lot of our customers need 99% and above reliability. And I think that's where you see a lot of the roadblock. And we always, in the automation industry, eventually overcome that bar, but it takes longer than people expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that end, one of the things that I'm most interested to talk to you about is, we sort of see this divide in robotics sometimes, where we talk about task-oriented robotics that, oftentimes look like, kind of one arm mounted in a stationary place, and then, we have this exciting new branch that's developing, which is humanoids and robots that have different form factors. And so, I'm curious from your vantage point, where are you seeing the use cases that require a humanoid, or that where that humanoid form factor is adding a lot of significant extra value?
Yeah, I think that this is always a question, is like, why not use a specialized machine versus a general purpose machine? And where you see um, great opportunity for general purpose machines is when you may or may not have full 100% utilization, or you need a mix of mobility and manipulation at the same time. Because a lot of special purpose machinery ends up being either mobile or manipulation, and they have very high utilization, especially for manipulation tasks, in one fixed location. And where you see a lot of opportunity for humanoids is moving from station to station, solving that manipulation problem at each of those stations, where they may not have 100% utilization of the machine if they were to put a specialized machine there. Because it really comes down to utilization and return on investment for customers.
And as I'm looking, at the demo behind us here, it looks like it's a robotic workstation, obviously, but it looks like, in many ways, a human work cell.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, the ability to operate in those kind of environments, it is clear to see why it's growing so quickly. Obviously, a major component of that is keeping these machines safe and,
Yes.
working collaboratively with people. So I know you all at Agility are leading the charge on safety. If you could tell me a little bit about that work and what some of the advancements that you guys have made there are.
Yeah. So as recently as last week, A new standard has passed ballot in the ISO realm, ISO 25875. It's a new standard that covers dynamically stable industrial mobile robots, Digit, and robots like Digit. And this is pretty exciting for the industry because a lot of the standards today that cover the humanoid market, they also cover other industrial mobile robots. And the challenge is there that those standards are a little silent on what to do with the dynamically stable part of the robot. And so this standard will help provide more guidance and clarify requirements for our types of robots. And this is a big deal because 10 years ago, we had the same problem in the AMR industry, and we didn't start the standards effort until a little bit after these robots were getting deployed into the real world. And now we're getting kind of a head start where we're starting about the same time as robots getting into the real world. You know, yes, it's off by a year, but it's not off by 3 years. And also, ISO has done an important job of limiting the time that it can take to create a standard. So ISO has said that if you start a standard, it needs to be complete in 3 years. So that gives us a lot of hope and promise for getting these standards in place quickly to help the industry be successful.
And of course, that speed is all the more important as there's more interest in automation. It seems like now than ever before. Some of that being driven by kind of these overarching trends. From your perspective, how have you seen the impact of onshoring? And moving manufacturing bases around. In the industry overall.
I think that that's a hard question to answer because, from my perspective, we've been talking as a country, let's say, or an industry about onshoring for the last 20 years, but there hasn't been much movement in the needle. And although automation will play a critical role if that occurs, I think that most of onshoring will be driven by tax incentives and other incentives for businesses. And those tax incentives could or could not be potentially majorly aligned with automation. And so it really depends on the public policy that gets created to enable onshoring.
Well, and in any event, it seems like this is very similar to what a manufacturing cell in the year 2060 or something like that might look like. Can you tell me a little bit about what we're seeing here and what's going on?
Yeah, so to be fair, it's a little bit contrived because we have such a small space. But what we're trying to show is the versatility of the robot for one, going to the end of a station, say for line feeding, unloading an AMR, and then walking to a next station. In this case, the next station just happens to be the end of the flow rack, but normally what you would see is Digit going to another station down the line. But this shows that Digit can load and unload an AMR and load and unload flow rack, and all from an AMR. And one of the other things that we're showing here is the integration with the AMR. So our Agility Arc platform, which is shown on the tablet there, actually interconnects with the Zebra platform and allows us to tell it to go to the next station and meet us there. And then the other thing that you'll see behind this robot doing this work is our autonomous charge docking. So our robots can manage their own state of charge, and connect and disconnect from their charge docks. And so there's 2 charge docks in the work cell showing that.
That's incredible. So let's zoom in on Digit specifically for just a second here, because it is a humanoid it's got all the limbs there, right? But it's got a form factor that's very unique. The legs in particular strike me a little bit more like deer legs, And so I'm so curious what the design process was like, and kind of what drove that form factor.
Yeah. So a lot of the form factor of the robot is driven by the physics of the legs. So one of the things that we did with the leg design is make them more easy to model, so that we can and more force transparent, so that we can ensure that the walking of the robot is very smooth and dynamic, and we can deal with changes in the environment or like on the floor more easily. So say there was something left on the ground and we step on it.
Mm.
The leg design is inherently a little more compliant and can more easily deal with those perturbations.
And now, what about the end effectors on the arms there? That's certainly looks like a specialty use case to pick up those pins. How do you go about figuring out what kind of hands you should put on each digit?
Yeah, so today this is our V4 robot, and we started by making our own industrialized gripper that handled the totes. But going forward, we're going to start partnering with other end effector manufacturers and using the large variety of end effectors that are out there in the industry for placing onto our robot. So the next generation of the robot, the hands will be swappable, and Digit will be able to change out its hands for different applications.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it was such a pleasure speaking with you. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to share for our listeners as we're watching what might be the future of
Yeah.
kind of automation?
I guess the one thing that we would like to share, and we want more people to get involved in the creation of the safety standard. And so if people are interested in the new safety standard that's being created in the ISO realm, they can reach out to Carol Franklin at the A3 Association to get engaged and join the standard with us and help making the future of safety for humanoid robots.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for your time.
Yeah,
I really
thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
We're excited to catch up with some of our good friends at Vincian. Here today we have Brandon, the Chief Product Officer. Brandon, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you guys are showing here today, can you give our listeners just an overview of who Vincian is? You guys play such a varied role in this ecosystem that I want to make sure we get it all down.
Oh, it's very kind of you. Yeah, sure. If you don't know Vincian, we are a one-stop shop for industrial automation. We've got an online browser-based platform where people can design a machine, program a machine, simulate a machine, and if you like it, you can order it. We'll assemble it if you want and ship it to you assembled, or like industrial IKEA, it'll come flat pack and you assemble it. And there are all kinds of machines. So from basic static workstations through to gantries, linear actuators, range extenders, through to robotic applications, pick and place, palletizing, depalletizing, all that kind of stuff. And our premise is that we can make this simple and accessible to people.
So you guys really empower so many applications across the board, and you're really responsible for the success of so many deployments. I'm curious, what are some of the trends that you're seeing from that unique vantage point that excite you the most in the automation industry?
Yeah, I mean, obviously AI is a big thing. So we started very simple. Vincian's history, it was first just like static frames and structures, which had a ton of value to get to very quickly design a custom workstation or a cart or a stand. And then we moved into basic motion, two-dimensional gantry motion, to be able to like lift and roll things to inspect stuff. Then we moved into robots, right? But it was still kind of blind robots. So, when I say blind, I mean, you would program the robot and it would just follow a path, right? And now we're moving into AI-based robotics. And that means that we can use vision, right? The frontiers of AI have progressed such that you can now, with an affordable stereo camera, you can look at a scene, identify an object, and then you can do something like pick up that object and whatnot. So that's really what's exciting us. And that's been a big part of our releases here at Automate this year.
So tell me about some of those releases. What are you guys kind of demoing here today? And, what are the exciting happenings in the world of Vincian?
Yeah, so the big news is we've got our MMAI motion controller. So, we've got a hardware ecosystem that is plug and play parts. So you need a controller to control things. Whether you're, just moving an actuator or you're controlling a robot, you need some kind of brain. So we've had 2 versions in our history, and this month we're releasing the 3rd generation of our controller. The thing that's different is we put an NVIDIA GPU inside it. So we put a big brain. And what does that mean you can do? You can run cutting edge foundational models. In simple terms, it's a brain that allows us to put an affordable camera that can look at a scene and reliably identify a part for picking it up.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we're super excited.
It's super exciting to see, all of the things you guys have going on the hardware front. And of course, we know, as we stand in this room full of innovators, that the pace of innovation and, you guys definitely being at the forefront of that, certainly accelerating. Lots of exciting things happening both on the hardware and the software front. My question for you is, what are some of the roadblocks that are, kind of impacting adoption? Why doesn't every factory look like the factories that we're seeing here? And not just factories, but, warehousing, logistics, every industry across the board. What are really the barriers that are keeping folks from adopting some of this technology?
Historically, it's taken a lot of effort to design a custom machine. The customers that are here at the show, they've got unique businesses. You know what I mean? They're in business because they're doing something special. And so there are patterns of their needs, but the products that people are manufacturing and packaging and whatnot are individualized. And so you need to develop custom. For a lot of applications, it's a custom machine. And the process of designing a custom machine takes some expertise and it takes some time. You need to validate that it's going to work and be safe and all that kind of stuff. So it's just time and money has been a bit of a barrier. The big companies like your automotive companies, they've been able to afford to automate things because they've got the money and they're doing high production. But your small and medium-sized companies, the math just hasn't been there to automate smaller scale production or production that might be working on one type of product for a week and then switch over to another type of product. Fortunately, that is starting to change and it is becoming easier and more affordable to do automation. I mean, we're super happy to play a part in that. There's a lot of other great companies here that are playing a part in that trend, but that trend is making it easier. And I just expect us to see more and more automation inside small and medium-sized businesses in the future.
And that really gets to the heart of one of the things that I love about Automate, which is the sense that we're all kind of on the same team working towards something together. Because, while you guys are part of the ecosystem, you really empower so much that kind of ripples out beyond just the things that you specifically touch. So, with that in mind, as you look at kind of the pain points of the future and, where you're thinking about the next generation of products, what do you think Vincent's role in that will be? And what are the pain points that you're, kind of looking for there?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're super proud that lots of actual companies here even use us, for where they can. There are some remaining technical challenges that we are close to making easy and affordable. So bin picking is one of them. And if people aren't familiar with the bin picking challenge, that is the challenge of, in so many facilities, people carry parts around in a bin. There's lots of good reasons. Maybe the step before, there was some machine that did something and they come out of a feeder and they drop into a bin. And now you need to do something like you do a little bit of more machining, or maybe you need to do some surface treatment or something like that. It turns out that there's a ton of the labor force whose job is to pick a part from a bin and to put it into some other machine for the next step. And humans are actually really good at that. We train since children, if you remember, to pick up a part and put the triangle into the, we know how to do that. That's actually been surprisingly hard to do that reliably and flexibly and affordably for robotics, but it is so common. So, I'm excited for us and frankly for our industry to make that reliable and affordable, because it's not the most rewarding job for human operators to sit somewhere and pick up something, to put it into a machine. We do all kinds of things to make that as rewarding as possible, but it's not super rewarding, and/or it's not ergonomic. Like, humans are great at this, but it's not good for us to do it all day, twisting and lifting and whatnot. So, we need to solve that technical challenge, and that's going to be a good thing for manufacturing.
Absolutely. And, at the same time as kind of these use cases are expanding, the flexible automation that you're talking about, becoming more and more possible. Even outside of that, it seems that more people than ever are interested in automation, interested in robotics. And, from my other conversations with folks, some of that being driven by the impact of this, kind of trend towards onshoring. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how has that started to play out in the automation industry? And what do you think the impacts of that will be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's well known that there are labor force challenges in manufacturing. And, I talked about the job. So I've walked a number of facilities this year, and you walk a facility and you see people doing this work, and it's very repetitive, and it can be tough on the body, and so the turnover is high. There's a lot of folks who will do the job, but they don't love it, and then they find something better, more rewarding, that fits their life, and like that's great for them. That's not great for the manufacturer. And onshoring, this trend of let's do more manufacturing in North America, means more people right now doing these kinds of tasks. So the trend, I think it's good to have more of the manufacturing distributed around the world. I think it's a good thing for North America to have more manufacturing. In order for us to do it successfully, we're going to have to automate. And I think this trend of the need for automation hopefully is meeting the trend of the capability of technology to do it, and if everything's great, we're going to land this plane, there's going to be more manufacturing in North America, and we're going to have the tech and automation to fulfill that demand.
So, my next question for you is, as we're, kind of looking at this, trend towards automation, and, kind of going back to the history of Vention and taking, another step back to, kind of the products that you guys are demoing here today and your new releases. My question for you is, how do these things connect, and, what do you kind of see as Vention's overall impact in the sector?
Yeah, I mean, we're one of the ones who, we have a point of view about automation. Our point of view is that it should be easier and faster for small and medium businesses, and actually enterprise. Enterprise actually use us a lot, but in some ways we feel like if we rise to the occasion for the small and medium businesses, that the enterprises come along too, because they actually value, speed and simplicity. So, we think we made some choices as a business. Vention said we are going to build a rich ecosystem of plug and play parts like Legos, industrial Legos. And when you decide to create a whole new Lego ecosystem, you make decisions about how big are the rectangles and what are you offering and all that kind of stuff. We sort of say that we offer t-shirt sizing, which means right now we offer 3 motors, and they're small, medium, large. And it's not everything in between. And some people might go, oh, the large is a little bigger than what we need or whatever. But like, we do this because we're trying to make it easier and faster and cheaper to get automation into people's hands. So like, we think we're a big proponent of that choice. Not everybody will make the same choice. That's totally fine. But we think it resonates with a lot of customers. At the end of the day, we want to help our customers, these distributors, manufacturers, whatnot, solve their manufacturing or material handling needs as quickly as possible.
And so in a lot of circumstances, from my background at Blue Sky Robotics, I know that, we, rely on Vention frequently as a marketplace for integrators, So, we talk a lot about what makes a good automation ally. And, we think about integrators as kind of allies for that end customer that helps drive not just, kind of initial installation success, but long-term stability and, continued success throughout the life cycle of that project. So my question for you is, what makes a good automation ally?
Yeah, well, so we love integrators. We love to work with integrators. We think they've got tons of domain knowledge. They care about the customers like we care about the customers. And frankly, we've got a hardware and software ecosystem, and we can't be in the field, in every factory that we'd like to where our equipment is being deployed. Now, we do get into a lot of them, right? We believe that in order for us to develop a good hardware and software ecosystem, we actually have to do it ourselves with our equipment. So we do a bunch of that, but we don't want to do all of it. What makes a great partner, I mean, it starts with like a customer focus. Like, they have to want and care about customer success. Vention, we're super committed to customer success. If something doesn't work, we're committed to going there and making sure that it works. So we need partners who have that kind of same mindset. We're not like, we're going to sell you something and then we walk away and we're like, it's up to you to make it successful. If it's not successful, then it's our problem, So we need partners that are dedicated in the same way. I mean, our hope is that the Vention ecosystem is easy enough to use that you don't have to be like the hardcore PLC expert. Like, Vention's promise is we're not, building PLCs. And for those, who don't know PLC, it's like, it's this solid technology. It's this old technology, but it's very robust. But it has limited number of people who really know how to build out that technology and serve the technology and so forth. So, our partners need to be people who are on board with the contemporary approach of putting an industrial computer beside the machine and letting the industrial computer do the controls. And I think that's more and more common.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of human focus, I think, is so special. And I'm happy to say is not uncommon as,
Yeah,
as
good.
the
Yeah,
industry,
good. Yeah.
kind of evolves.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about what makes a successful deployment, but my question for you is, what are some of the common mistakes that you see folks make when they go to kind of take their first foray into automation?
Yep. I mean, biting off more than they can chew. Like, it's good if a business hasn't done a ton of automation, you kind of want to do a risk-based approach, which means you might look at your process and feel like there's some piece here that is like the bottleneck or like the most important. And boy, if we could automate that, it would really help our business. You want to get there eventually, but you want to, if you haven't done a lot of automation, you actually want successes. So you want ROI that's good enough to be worth it, but maybe not your highest one, where you can get some experience and some confidence that it's gonna work. So some of those are palletizing. I don't know if your audience is familiar with palletizing, but at the end of most manufacturing lines, you have a box of product and you need to put those products onto pallets for shipping out somewhere. That is something that lots of places still have humans doing, but palletizing has become quite a reliable solution available to people. So if you've got a plant and you're doing that and you're not doing palletizing, like, that's a great place to start because you're likely to be very successful. And then, the next most successful deployment, and then you build up to things that are a little riskier, but boy, if it works, it's going to have a big payoff.
Yeah. Well, Brendan, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak
My
with us.
pleasure,
Thank you
Tony.
so
Right
much.
on. Yeah, thank you.
We're excited to catch up with the folks from Siemens about some of the exciting updates that they have going on. I'm joined now by Calm Gavin, a business developer at Siemens. Calm, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Calm, Siemens sits at the intersection of so many different things. You guys empower so many solutions. It gives you such a unique vantage point, and I'm really curious, what are some of the trends in the automation industry and the automation sector that excite you the most right now?
Well, there's three main trends that excite me the most right now. One is a continuation of what I've been working on for a long time, and I'll come to that in a moment, because the two big ones that we're seeing, the first one is how to deploy AI to the shop floor. So that's AI, as we all know, is an extremely powerful tool, but can it be useful in industrial environments? Can it help operators running a machine to fix the machine, to get the machine back up and running sooner? So we've been partnering with Microsoft Copilot to come to the market with our industrial Copilot for operations. And we see a lot of value in that, because very often operators are standing in front of machines when they're down, trying to look at maybe cryptic alarm messages on the HMI panel. What can I do to get this back up and running sooner? And there could be a whole host of reasons that maybe it's very difficult for them to estimate and fix the problem quickly. If I have an AI tool chatbot that I can just ask, hey, why is the machine down? Or I don't understand this error code. Or maybe I know the machine is down. I can see it, it's not running. Can you give me, literally type it in or talk to the chatbot, can you give me a recommendation? And a prioritized recommendation, what should I do to get the machine back up and running? There's a whole host of use cases where as one shift is changing over, or a new product is being introduced. A lot of things to help operators maintain and just keep the machine up and running. And then you have like a lot of, say, knowledge, tribal knowledge leaving the industry. We want to capture that. If I can capture that and have that into a chatbot that has been pre-trained with like 30 years of industry knowledge, as long as it's in a textual format, we can bring that up into our chatbot, and then you can ask, okay, what is the most effective way to troubleshoot this machine to get it back up and running? That is, we're finding that we find that resonating very much with large or any end-use manufacturer, because it's all about helping their operators. In many cases, maybe I have to ask a question in another language to get that response back. So training, enablement, everything to help the worker, and I think there's a tremendous opportunity with that. And Siemens, we have a differentiating technology on that, where we combine static data, manuals, alarms, anything that we can, tribal knowledge that can be written down in a textual format. We push it up into the cloud, and we combine that with running data from the machine. And the combination gives us this, I think, a differentiation of when you ask something of an industrial copilot, it can respond accordingly for that machine or that line. So that's a real good one.
That's incredible. So you're taking, really like 30 or 50 years of experience.
As long as we can get it in
creating-
a textual format, and we're updating it with the graphic images as well, and getting it up into the cloud. We have on-premise planned as well, but the cloud right now is where we're hosting it in conjunction with Microsoft Azure, leveraging their Copilot. So
That's incredible.
So that was the real first one that we see how to say help operators. How can we help operators improve their lives, if you like? And the second one, maybe I got these confused. Sorry, maybe this is about how to deploy AI to the shop floor. That's a whole other idea of vision system or some level of AI optimization on the machine. How do you deploy that down onto the shop floor and make it in a safe, secure way? And then how do you deploy it across multiple facilities in many areas, So management of AI applications down in the shop floor, we have a solution. We're leveraging our industrial edge platform, which allows us to basically containerize, Dockerize applications from you develop an application or I develop one or custom one or off-the-shelf Siemens. We can encapsulate that in a wrapper and we deploy it down onto an industrial edge system, which is basically very similar to how your iPhone operates. How do you deploy applications seamlessly to the shop floor? And we do it in a secure, robust way because our edge management system has the built-in required features for security to allow us to know where this application is going to go, on what device, on what machine, and in what facility. And so we follow very closely working with IT to make sure getting the application down to the shop floor can be easily done. But then the real differentiation for me is AI applications running on the shop floor that are interacting with real equipment. You got to make sure there are some guardrails around that it doesn't do anything, that it doesn't cause negative effects or damage the equipment. That's also things we have built into our industrial edge platforms to built-in guardrails to make sure that AI applications, whether it's around vision or performance improvements, whatever it is, that it can be deployed safely, securely, and at scale across the system. Those are the really two big areas. Helping the operator with the Copilot and deploying applications to the shop floor in an easy, secure way. We're doing it now when we see a big demand from our customers to do that.
So, I love this idea and, really appreciate you articulating some of the guardrails that you're using in terms of physical AI. And I'm thinking computer vision, motion.
It's the classic one.
And
exactly.
Applications like that. What are the guardrails on the Copilot side? How are you making sure that information is accurate?
Well, of course, end customers, people who are using it, they do have to sanitize the data that they're putting up there, right? And there are additional guardrails we put in about, what questions you're asking, what will the response be? The number one thing, of course, you have to make sure, and in our testing, that the Copilot is not recommending something dangerous to the machine.
Right.
So there are guardrails in there that we've built in as far as if it feels it's recommending something outside of what it'll say, sorry, I can't help, I'm not in a position to help with that. But definitely the information that's uploaded into the Copilot for how it works effectively, that does need to be sanitized, if you like, by the user, if you like, right? So they have the right equipment, the right data is being sent into it.
Absolutely. So, super exciting to hear, a little bit about what the future looks like there and, how you guys are using AI in new and innovative ways. But, as we're sitting here at Automate, in a lot of ways, the nexus of innovation in, a variety of industries, there's a lot of technology, both hardware and software, that we've seen lately that hasn't quite made its way out into general adoption yet. What are some of the roadblocks to, greater adoption of some of these technologies?
I think one of the biggest roadblocks we've seen, but we're working with customers to overcome this, is connection to third-party clouds. Connection. If there's a cloud solution, cloud solutions in general. I mean, of course, we do online banking. You could say, we all do it, right? So, but in industrial environments, working closely with IT to ensure that how we do safe connectivity down to the shop floor, separating the networks and the OT and IT. Um, that will be an ongoing challenge to, that the end user manufacturers have the confidence that if they're making a connection to a cloud solution, that it's safe. And so we have systems built in, security-wise, certificates, there's a whole bunch of reasons. Like, how do we make it robust? How do we make it secure? At least from the Siemens side, that's what we're promoting, and that's what we're working with end customers or any customer to do that. So that's a challenge that we see.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and as you guys are, kind of deploying these really advanced solutions, whether they be kind of GPT-driven AIs like Copilot, or more, kind of traditional automation, machine learning that is, your computer vision, your pathfinding, and things like that. What are some of the common mistakes that you see when people kind of go to put these systems into practice?
well, I think it's we like to start small, find value, prove value, and then scale accordingly. So, don't try to eat the elephant all at once.
Right.
I think the most important thing is to identify use cases that make sense. And that can be hard sometimes. Where do you want to prioritize your effort? Is it on the worker? Is it on your design data? Is it simulation related? So I think identifying clear use cases of business value that a technology, we're not just deploying it for the technology's sake because it looks cool and it sounds cool. Is it going to save money? Is it going to reduce downtime? For example, we're working with a large end user with our Copilot topic now, where they reckon it can save a considerable amount of money per week in downtime because the parameters of this line are so sensitive that if it's any way deviates, they could lose a large part of their product. And so an operator running that line, this is where take advantage of that extra AI muscle that can help with that. But of course, the use cases where you would deploy it have to be clearly defined. So that's one thing. The other area, though, which is a big discussion, is the whole topic of data. And how are you managing the data? And we see maybe one area that companies should start if you're trying to pull data out of systems, what are you doing to contextualize the data? How are you managing your unstructured data from a variety of different machine sources? That's a project in itself. At Siemens, we can help with that. We have a variety of tools to help upload data and then structure it and put some sort of context around it so that it's contextualized before it goes anywhere else. So looking at the data, where is the data stored? How are you doing your data contextualization? Those are kind of areas to get started, because if you don't, I think this happened maybe a couple of years ago when cloud systems first came out. It was all about the data, people would upload it, and nobody was doing anything with it.
Right.
It was too much data. No one had no idea how to work with it because it was too much and it wasn't contextualized. So start small, find value, identify a clear use case where it's going to reduce the downtime or save money, help an operator, whatever it would be. It doesn't have to be a massive project at the start, and it can grow. I would also say, looking at don't tie yourself into siloed solutions. That if you deploy something onto the shop floor to help, think about, well, how can that grow? How am I going to scale this? If this one AI application is deployed to this one machine, how do I deploy that to the 10 machines across 100 facilities? What do you have to have in place to do that? How do you scale? That's something to kind of think about as you try to deploy technology, so it doesn't become a science project, basically.
And in many ways, these questions more important now than ever, because we are seeing so much more interest in automation, both kind of large companies and then small and mid-sized folks that were looking at kind of the environment around onshoring and moving more production back into the United States, back into North America. How are you seeing that affect your business and then kind of play out in the sector overall?
It's huge, and it goes back to maybe one of the three main topics that we see. So the first one I mentioned, deploying AI. The second one about helping workers with Copilot for operations in the shop floor. The third one that's very big, it's been around a while, but it's becoming more and more important now, is simulation. And if you're bringing back, if you're like a greenfield, if you're developing a new facility, this is where simulation really helps. It's kind of, you know, putting simulation in after the fact is, you know, is the value really there? But for a greenfield scenario where you can lay out the facility, what is the optimum layout, you know, the throughput, the networking, where should the machines be, and then validating the automation systems that go into there before anything is built. So that's a technology that when your companies onshoring back to the US, use I would say that's the time, the right time to embrace the simulation, whether it's deep level physics simulation for some process or it's just generic simulation robots, as we see hundreds of robots around us here.
Right.
How can you simulate those lines? It's what we have in our booth here. It's simulation of production lines with lots of robots, or it's just generic value stream mapping at the start and simple throughput analysis and bottlenecks. That's where a real value of simulation can happen for onshoring, for sure. So, and also maybe companies investing it, like from an executive level. How do they know that this line is going to produce as much as it needs to? Simulation is a key technology in that, to make sure that the investments you're making are there. Prove out the automation technology as quickly as possible and validate it. So I don't know if that, hopefully that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. So Colin, tell me a little bit about what we're seeing behind us here. I know this is one of the exhibitions that you were most excited to share.
Yeah, so what behind me here, you can see our wall of simulation. And this is where we are showing where we can bring in validating robotic cells. We're virtually commissioning the automation code against that robotic cell. And what's really unique here is that we see in some cases people developing robot simulation maybe in different locations, and they maybe have different instances of their simulation software. So to work collaboratively in a team, we can bring this together and we can push it into the industrial omniverse, or excuse me, the metaverse, which is NVIDIA's omniverse, what we're showing here behind us. So that's a very interesting way to render simulation scenes in a very large scale, large way to do that.
That's incredible. Well, Colin, I really appreciate you taking the time to catch up with me.
No
Thank you so much. It was
You're
so
welcome.
interesting. So I'm still here at the Siemens booth with my friends Colin and Kristen, and I'm excited to learn a little bit more about their Copilot technology.
Yeah, no, and so from our little introduction at the start, right, we talked about how to deploy AI applications to the shop floor with Industrial Edge. We talked about simulation for new greenfields. But one of the real highlights we have in this show for helping operators on the shop floor is our Industrial Copilot for Operations. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Kristen Kwesi, who is a product manager, who would maybe give a better overview than I ever can for this tool.
So today we're showing our Industrial Copilot for Operations. So really what we have here, first of all, is a digital twin of a packaging machine. And then we have our Industrial Copilot software where we can interact with the machine as if you are talking to an expert who has been working on this machine for years. So you can get live data from your machine along with documentation information. So you can ask the Copilot things like, how many products have been produced today? What type of errors are we seeing on the machine? And not only what is that error, but how do I fix it? So the Copilot can give you step-by-step instructions on what to do next. So great for a operator who's new on the shop floor and needs to figure out where to get started with solving some of these maintenance issues, or even an expert who maybe is working on the night shift, and instead of calling someone at 3 in the morning to get help, they can chat with the Copilot and help troubleshoot some of the errors that they've seen.
That's incredible. So in a lot of ways, you're kind of condensing, 30 or 50 years worth of experience into just one unified portal for folks, and taking it down to, kind of a comprehension level that anyone can interact with. Is that fair to
Yes,
say?
exactly. So we want to be able to kind of capture all the tribal knowledge, as we say, of expert engineers and operators, and be able to have that information kind of stored here in our Copilots, and then anybody can use the Copilot. You just need to chat with it in natural language. So basically, however you speak is how you can type to the Copilot, and it'll be able to understand what you're saying and give you back, hopefully, the answer you're looking for.
So what are some of the questions that you can ask? What's some of the information that I could get from this guy?
Yeah, definitely. So some of the examples we have today are looking at how many parts have been produced, how many good parts versus how many scrap parts. looking at what is the current error that we're seeing, and then looking at how do we fix this error with step-by-step instructions. A neat feature we also have is we can ask the Copilot to send you a notification once an error has occurred. So you can actually get an email pop up when a specific error that you might be especially concerned about occurs on your machine. You can have it actually, ping you and let you know what is going wrong.
So I want to back up just a little bit. Are you saying there's real production data? Like you can access production data here on a daily basis?
Yeah, so
That's incredible.
our Copilot's connected through OPC-UA. So any information your PLC is able to capture, we can access here on the Copilot. And then any documentation you have. So any manuals, working instructions, ticketing information, basically as long as it's a text-based system, even emails, we can have those uploaded into the Copilot and then interact with it through asking questions.
So it's not just for when things go wrong.
No, not at all. Yeah, it can help you with getting started, starting up the machine, walking you through that process, helping you understand different features within a machine. So not just for when things go wrong, but really any time that you just need a little bit more information about the product that you're working on.
That's incredible. And now tell me a little bit about the other side of the screen over here, this maybe a digital twin.
Yeah, so this is a digital twin of a packaging machine. So we're showing this on our digital industry software tool called NXMCD. So basically we have a live digital twin of a machine where we have some parts moving around and being boxed up. And yeah, we're able to connect to the digital twin and then pull real-time information from it as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Is there anything else you want to share about this station here?
Just that we have a lot of different industrial Copilot tools that Siemens is going to be releasing. So generative AI is really a key focus from Siemens right now, and you'll see it integrated in a lot of our different tools, from designing tools to engineering tools to predictive maintenance and services tools. So a lot more to come from Siemens with industrial Copilot.
Well, then on that note, I have to ask, are we close to generating robot code? Are we close to being able to actually generate programming that could go into a real physical machine?
Yes. So we actually have our industrial Copilot for engineering as well, which is all about generating automation code. So that is going to be integrated with our TIA portal engineering platform. So from there, that can help you create SCL code, create HMI visualization. So that's all about programming PLCs and automation hardware.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Yeah,
I really
thank
appreciate
you.
it. I know you all have been with us. We've been talking to a lot of folks on the floor, but Stephen, we haven't had the chance to catch up with you yet. And I know you've been walking the show floor, looking at a lot of exciting things. I'm curious, what have you seen that excites you the most?
What I think we're seeing a lot of is really this AI-empowered robotics. And so you have the physical space, and it's made safer and better by having smart decisions happening on the top. So understanding the environment and being able to make predictive analysis has really helped to make for safer, better bots.
So, Stephen, one of the big talking points that we've been hearing a lot about is this idea of Industry 4.0. I wonder if you can tell us, what does that actually mean, and what does the transition process to that look like?
Well, if you think about a lot of the current industrial mechanical world of automation, it's a lot of physical in-place welded material movement, right? But as we think about the future, what are we going to do? We're going to have smarter, more flexible, easier to change systems that can change as markets change, as customers change, as products change. You need to be able to create new products at the same speed that the environment is changing. And so when we talk about the mechanical 4.0 or this kind of industrial 4.0 version, we're talking about a new version that is really AI smart enabled and robotic enabled to make you more flexible.
So, Stephen, we've talked to a lot of folks about, what some of the barriers of adoption are. And in a space like this, I love this quote, the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. Standing here on the floor of Automate 2025 certainly feels like the future is here. What are some of the roadblocks to, broader adoption that, is maybe keeping that future from being more evenly distributed?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of really unique solutions that solve real problems, but I think people are fearful of the cost, right? That kind of upfront cost and how much of this equipment is going to cost. Are they going to be able to service it over time? And so looking at that in the broad perspective, But what we're seeing is now companies are really having to compete with all of these new manufacturers, all these new technologies that are out there. And so the price is coming down more than you may think.
So, Stephen, one of the other things that we've been hearing a lot about from folks is safety and this idea of, making cobots truly compatible to working in environments with other folks. There's been a lot of discussion around the term cobot itself. I wonder if you can give us a little bit of insight into what's actually happening behind the scenes there.
So when we talk about a cobot, we mean something that's designed to work alongside people. But the thing about a cobot is it's not just the bot itself, it's the entire system. And that system has to be safe for everyone. And so in the object that it's picking up, in the way that it moves, in the speed that it moves. And so what we need to say is that like it is a safe system, right? It is a system that's designed to be worked around people. A big component of that is the cobot. But we also have to make sure that our rails and all these other pieces are a part of that system and the safety notifications and everything are in place. So it's not just a cobot solves your problem. It's that the cobot is a big piece of creating a safe, automated environment.
So it sounds like what you're saying is it's not just the hardware, but there's also a software component to safety as well.
Absolutely. There's hardware, software, there's all of these different pieces, and then also training, right? You got to make sure that people are trained well and that they understand the technology that they're working with.
So, Stephen, lots of different types of bots on display here today. Interesting to note that only a couple of humanoids that we've spoken to, and a lot of scare robots, a lot of different types of robots. What's your take on kind of the mix of what you've seen here?
So there is a robot to solve every problem, right? And so if you need speed, you have that. If you need precision, you have that. If you need heavy industrial, you have that. There are so many different versions and so many things out there. There's a lot of companies producing bots now and different arms and end effectors and all of those things. Not seeing as many humanoid robots, I think, is just true to the kind of hype cycle versus the usability, right? And so people who are here are trying to automate production. And so do you need a humanoid to do that? No, you need a humanoid to go upstairs. You need a humanoid to open doors, but that's not really what necessarily most of the people who are here are trying to solve. So it makes sense that that's not necessarily the main thing that we see here, but it won't be long because we're seeing the components of humanoids. and we saw shoulders and things that people are wanting to show those components, that they make those components. And so it's coming, and in the next few years, we're going to see that grow here.
And a few notable exceptions, of course, we got to catch up with the folks from Agility and see the awesome things that they're working on. But just in the total mix, it is interesting to note.
Yeah. Or the compound robot, I think, is an interesting idea. It's an AMR and a lift and arms, and it's like vision and all these different pieces together to solve a problem. It's similar to the way a humanoid robot would work, but it just doesn't have to balance itself. So that's a more efficient, maybe safer way of doing things.
One of the things that I'm hearing from folks is they walk around, they're maybe in customers, they're not integrators, they're not necessarily robotics experts, they're not, PhDs in automation, but they're seeing things that look cool, but maybe they don't necessarily know how they'll use them or know how all this fits together. And, it really strikes me that that's part of the value of having an automation ally, an integration partner like Blue Sky Robotics. From your perspective, as you're walking around, what are you taking back to your customers from here?
Well, some of our customers were here, and some of the questions that they asked I thought were really interesting. Is that why are there so many different arms here? Why are there so many different things? What are these different companies doing? And essentially, it's all the components to make an automated system. But learning and understanding how to do that, you need electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, software engineering, vision engineering. All of these things is what we provide. And we say, okay, let's look at your holistic problem, understand the essence of that problem, and then how do we solve it step by step, piece by piece. And really, most companies don't have that entire repertoire on their staff. And so we're able to help on that. And there's a lot of companies that are here offering that same type of thing to help people get into this automated world.
So, Stephen, it's not lost on me that we're standing here in the Farino Devonics booth. It's a huge component of the show here. Why are we here? What's the story there?
Well, it's really exciting because Blue Sky Robotics is now going to be a Farino partner. And we're going to be able to deliver the Farino robots all the way from their small 3 kilos all the way up to their 16 kilos. Lots of different use cases for these. And we have robot arms that can solve a lot of different problems. And so we're very excited to be working with the Farino and with the Devonics team. And it's a great offering for our clients.
And a great way to complement our other offerings. It's another tool in the toolbox that we use to solve our customers' problems.
Absolutely. We're still going to offer the other arms that we're going to find the right solutions, and people come to us with a problem. We solve that problem with the best tool out there. And that's one of the things, for a reason we're here, is to try to find those other tools. And so, this is a great partnership because it's one that we know it well. We know that the arm works. It works for thousands of hours. It's a good, robust, but cost-effective arm. And so that's one that we're really happy to work with.
Well, Stephen, is there anything else that you've seen over the last few days that you'd like to share? Things that jumped out at you, industry trends, automation myths. What have you noticed?
So I think one of the key trends that we're seeing here is that people are trying to move towards automating and knowing that they need to deal with the workforce problems that they're facing. And so they're looking for solutions. When you come to a place like here, there's so many components, it's a little bit overwhelming, right? How do I deal with all these things? So I think what we're seeing is that companies are going to look for more turnkey options because they don't have that the people on staff to manage that. And so I think what we're seeing is a few things that people are saying, here's the vision, here's the robot, here's the software, all of these things together, add your conveyor and you're ready, right? And I think you're going to see more of those solutions rather than just these more engineering components.
Now, in terms of trends, I know the show's not over, but by most metrics, Automate on track to break attendance records from years past. What do you attribute that to? Why is there so much more focus on automation now than maybe even in the same time last year?
Yeah, I think if you look at kind of our political situation with tariffs and kind of up and downs of those and not understanding how that's going to play out, there's a lot of a movement to onshore manufacturing. The only way we're going to be able to do that is if we can automate some of those processes. And so I think just both the political situation as well as people seeing it in their margins, right? If you're competing against some of these big players, they are automating. So therefore, if you're a small or middle-sized company, you're going to have to automate as well. And so if you want to compete with them, you've got to automate. And that's why we're seeing a lot of people here, I think.
On one of the things that I've noticed on kind of the supplier side is that there's so much innovation happening at a pace that is just almost incomprehensible. That processes that were impossible to automate almost even like a year or 2 years ago are now sort of possible to at least approach the conversation about.
Yeah, I mean, some of the interesting things as you think that conveyors have been around for 100 years and how much is really going to change on conveyors. We saw magnetic field driven conveyors that are far more efficient, right? And we saw things where people are using AI software and computer vision software to make things safer, to make things easier and faster. And so, yeah, things that we thought were harder to maybe you shouldn't automate or wouldn't be able to automate, there's now new end effectors and new software that's helping people to do that.
Well, Stephen, a pleasure to catch up with you as always. Looking forward to unpacking all of the lovely things that we've learned here on future episodes of Beyond the Bot. So stay tuned because we'll be coming back with more about why all this matters and how you can put it to work in your business today.